The roar of the crowd echoed through the crimson arena, a storm of voices chanting one name again and again. Zara, the alien gladiator, stood in the center, her blue skin glowing under the harsh lights, her long white hair flowing like fire. In the wind, she didn't smile. She never did. She was a warrior, a champion, and a symbol of victory for the Varan Empire. No one had ever beaten her. Not once. Zara had fought beasts twice her size, machines armed with death rays, and even other elite gladiators from across the galaxy. She didn't bleed. She didn't beg. And most importantly, she didn't fall. But far from the noise of the arena, on a small transport ship heading toward the capital, a human named Jace looked out the window, unaware his name was about to be written into history. He wasn't a soldier, not a hero. Just a mechanic trying to pay off debts and disappear. But fate doesn't care about your plans. Jace had fixed the wrong ship. It had belonged to a smuggler carrying illegal tech, and by the time Jace realized it, security had already surrounded him. His choices were simple: rot in a prison cell for 20 years, or fight one match in the Varan arena, just one. He laughed when they told him, "You want me to fight? I've never thrown a punch in my life." The officer didn't blink. "Then make it a memorable death." The arena was full that day. Zara's opponent was introduced as a special treat, a human, small and weak, a real joke. Bets were made. No one expected the fight to last more than a minute. Zara stood in the sand, her muscles still as stone. She looked at Jace as he stepped forward, blinking under the bright lights. No armor, no weapon, just confusion in his eyes. He raised his hands. "Look, I don't want to fight. I'm not a gladiator." She didn't answer. Instead, she rushed him. Jace barely dodged. Her punch cracked the stone behind him. The crowd cheered. He stumbled, fell, rolled out of the way. He wasn't fast, he was lucky. Zara's eyes narrowed. This human didn't fight back. He just kept moving, ducking, tripping over his own feet. Minutes passed, and he was still standing. Zara hesitated. Something was wrong. He wasn't mocking her. He wasn't afraid. He was confused and tired. "I'm not your enemy," Jace said between gasps. "Please." The crowd began to shift. Whispers spread. This wasn't a fight. This was a question. Why hadn't she ended it yet? Zara paused, her fists clenched. She had always fought with purpose. Her enemies came with weapons, rage, and bloodlust. This one came with kindness. She raised her hand and then slowly lowered it. Gasps filled the arena. She turned her back to him and walked away. Jace stood frozen, not believing what had just happened. The guards rushed in, confused. The match was over. No death, no victory. The arena had fallen silent. Later in the underground chambers, Zara sat on a stone bench. Her eyes were closed. She remembered every fight she had ever won, but none of them had made her feel this strange. The door creaked. Jace entered, escorted by guards. He rubbed the back of his neck, unsure what to say. "Thanks for not, breaking my bones." Zara opened her eyes. "You didn't want to fight. Still don't." She studied him. "Why are you here?" "I fixed a ship I wasn't supposed to. Now I'm stuck in a cage with a killer." Zara tilted her head. "You think I'm just a killer?" Jace looked into her glowing eyes. "I think you're someone who chose not to kill. That says something." No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not her trainers, not her masters, not even her fans. Jace wasn't like the others. She stood up slowly. Even in silence, her presence was powerful. "You are strange, human," she said. "Thanks. I get that a lot." He didn't smile. Not yet, but something had started between them. A shift neither could explain. She walked past him, her shoulder brushing his. "Stay alive," she said, without turning back. "I may want to fight you again." Jace watched her go, heart racing, not from fear, but from something deeper. He didn't know it yet. But he had already won the one battle no warrior ever could. He had made her feel that, and in the arena of war and glory, feelings were more dangerous than any blade. The arena's mood had changed. Zara's decision to spare Jace had spread like fire through the Varan Empire. News stations called it weakness. Military officials called it a breach of honor, but the crowds, they were divided. Some were angry, others curious. Why did the champion show mercy? Why him? Jace had no idea what to make of any of it. He sat alone in a cold metal room beneath the arena, waiting for someone to tell him what came next. He had expected to die. Instead, he was alive and now famous. A soldier entered with a datapad. "They're giving you another match." Jace blinked. "What? Why?" The man shrugged. "The people want it. You're the human who didn't die. You're entertainment now." "I'm a mechanic, not anymore." The door closed and Jace sighed. He looked down at his bruised hands. His body ached from the last fight, even though he hadn't thrown a punch. But worse than the pain was the worry. Zara, would she fight him again? Would she be forced to? Elsewhere in the Gladiator quarters, Zara stood in front of a massive stone wall covered in names fighters who had died under her blade. She traced the letters with her fingers. Some of them she remembered, most of them she didn't. But Jace? She remembered everything. His eyes, his words. The way he had looked at her like she was more than just a weapon. She had faced monsters, beasts, machines, but no one had ever looked at her like she mattered. A trainer approached. "They want you to finish the job." Zara turned, her voice cold. "He didn't fight. He humiliated you. He stayed alive." The trainer stepped closer. "He made you look weak. The Empire demands a lesson. If you don't give them blood, they'll take everything from you. Even your freedom." Zara's jaw clenched. Freedom. It was a word she hadn't thought about in years. She had been trained since childhood to win, to kill, to serve. But now, a human had stirred something she didn't recognize. Later that night, she found him again. This time not in a cell, but in a quiet garden behind the arena walls. The place was hidden, overgrown, and mostly forgotten. But she had always liked it. It was the only place where no one looked at her like a weapon. Jace was sitting under a strange tree with glowing blue leaves. He had picked one and was holding it in his fingers, watching the light flicker. She stepped out of the shadows. "Why are you here?" He looked up surprised. "Trying to breathe. Seems like you need permission for that around here." "You're not safe here," I figured, "but you didn't kill me. So, maybe I'm not completely hopeless." She sat down across from him, folding her arms. "They want me to fight you again. Will you?" "I don't know." Jace smiled slightly. "I like honest answers." They sat in silence for a while. The wind made the leaves above them dance with soft light. For a moment, neither of them felt like gladiators, prisoners, or enemies. They just felt human. "Why do you fight?" Jace asked softly. Zara didn't answer right away. "Because I have to." He nodded. "That's not the same as wanting to." "No, it isn't." Jace leaned back against the tree. "I never thought I'd end up in a place like this. I just wanted to fix engines and stay out of trouble. You failed. Big time." She almost smiled. Almost. "There's something strange about you," she said. "You're not strong, not skilled. But you don't fear me." "I'm terrified," he said honestly. "But I still believe you're more than what they made you." That silence again, deeper now. Something was changing between them. She stood. "Don't die in your next match. You could help with that." She gave him a long look. "If I help you, I become their enemy too." He stood slowly. "Then, maybe it's time someone fought for something real." Her eyes glowed softly under the moonlight. For the first time in years, Zara didn't feel like a weapon. She felt like a person. She walked away without a word, but her steps were slower this time. Jace knew something had shifted. Not just in her, but in him too. He wasn't ready for war. But maybe, just maybe, he had something worth fighting for now. The sun burned red over the Varan arena the next morning. A massive crowd had gathered again. Screens showed Jace's nervous face being prepared for another match. His opponent was not Zara, not yet. This time, it was a reptilian brute from the outer colonies of fighter known for tearing enemies in half. Jace had no armor. Just light gear and a weak energy shield strapped to his chest. His hands trembled. He was not trained, not ready. But the gate opened, and the crowd roared. He stepped into the arena. The alien beast roared across from him, its skin armored with bone-like plates, claws scraping the ground. The crowd loved it. They wanted blood. Jace stood frozen. His brain screamed to run, but his legs wouldn't move. Then, just as the beast charged forward, a second gate opened. Gasps filled the arena. Zhar Adea entered the arena, walking calmly between Jace and the beast. She raised one hand toward the overseer's box. A silence fell. Then she spoke into the translator chip. "This fight is dishonorable. He is untrained, a mechanic. If you want blood, take mine." The officials were stunned. The crowd went wild. No gladiator had ever stepped in like this. Jace's heart pounded. He didn't understand what she was doing. "Zara, what are you?" She turned to him. "You are not meant to die like this." The beast growled and charged them both. In a blink, Zara moved. She kicked the brute's leg, spun behind it, and elbowed its back with a crack that echoed through the arena. The creature collapsed with a thud. The fight was over in seconds. The crowd lost their minds. Zara reached down and offered Jace her hand. He took it slowly, pulled to his feet. From that day, the rules changed. The officials had no choice but to approve it. Zara and Jace would now fight as a pair. One experienced, one learning. Gladiator duos were rare. And never had one been human. And alien. Training began immediately. Zara was strict. "Don't swing with your eyes closed," she snapped as Jace stumbled after throwing a punch. "I'm trying." "You're dancing like a broken droid. Use your legs." Every day they trained in the sand pits behind the arena. Zara pushed him hard mentally and physically, but never with cruelty. She guided him, corrected him, and when he fell, she helped him up. At night, they returned to the quiet garden. It had become their secret place. Zara sat with her back against the tree. Jace flopped beside her, exhausted and sweaty. "You enjoy hurting me," he groaned. She looked down at him. "If I did, you'd already be dead," he laughed, comforting. Then he paused. "Why are you really helping me?" Zara was silent for a while. Then she said, "Because you made me feel something I didn't think was possible." He turned to her. "What?" "Peace." Her voice was soft. Every fight, every cheer from the crowd, it was never mine. It belonged to them, my victories, my pain, all taken. But when I speak with you, even when you annoy me, I feel like I'm me. Jace didn't know what to say. So he didn single quotes d. He reached out and gently took her hand. She let him. It was a small thing, but in the empire that raised her as a weapon, it was everything. Time passed. They trained. They fought. And they won again and again. The crowd had never seen anything like them. Human and the alien, fighting side by side, protecting each other. Zara was no longer the Empire's champion. She was her own. And Jace? He was becoming more than a mechanic. He was becoming a warrior. But deep in the shadows of the arena, not everyone celebrated. A high-ranking official, cloaked in black, watched their rise with narrowed eyes. "They're changing the story," he whispered, turning the weapon into a woman. "The crowd is beginning to feel compassion." The other commanders stood silent. "Remove the human," the man ordered. "Permanently." They bowed and disappeared into the dark. Zara and Jace had unknowingly started something far bigger than themselves. And soon, The cost would come crashing down on them both. Jace woke up in the middle of the night, coughing. Smoke filled the air. Alarms screamed through the arena's lower chambers. His door had been locked from the outside. He pushed against it, nothing. He pounded, shouted. Still nothing. A sudden explosion shook the floor. Fire burst from the hallway cracks. Someone had locked him inside. This wasn't an accident. Outside the room, guards moved slowly, too slowly, their eyes blank. They weren't rescuing anyone. They were making sure no one got out. Zara was already awake. Her chambers were farther from the blast, but she could smell the smoke. She rushed out and saw 2 guards blocking the hallway. "Where's the human?" she demanded. One guard shrugged. "Trapped in his cell. You didn't open it?" "No." Command was given. She stepped forward. "Then here's my command, get out of my way." They didn't move, so she moved them. Her fist struck like thunder. The guards fell without a sound. Zara sprinted through the fire and smoke, heart racing. By the time she reached Jace's door, flames were climbing the walls. She ripped open the panel and slammed her fists into the emergency lever. Sparks flew. The door opened with a screech. Jace stumbled out, coughing hard. His eyes widened as he saw her. "You came," he whispered. "Of course I came." She grabbed his arm and pulled him through the fire. They raced down burning corridors until they reached a safe zone. Medical drones swarmed him, checking his vitals. But Zara wasn't looking at the drones. She was watching the guards. Too calm. Too slow. This wasn't an accident. It was an attempt to kill him, and they almost succeeded. Later, in the medical chamber, Jace lay on a padded bed, a mask on his face. He looked up and saw Zara sitting beside him, her armor still scorched, eyes burning with quiet rage. "They tried to kill me," he said weakly. "Yes," she replied, "and they will try again." Jace sat up. "We need to leave." Zara nodded. "But leaving isn't enough. We must make them regret ever using us." For the first time, it wasn't just about survival anymore. It was rebellion. Over the next few days, things changed. Zara no longer followed orders without question. She asked why. She challenged officials. And when they couldn't answer, she turned her back and walked away. Jace, though still healing, began speaking to other fighters. Quietly, carefully. He told them what had happened. Some believed him. Others didn't, but whispers began to spread. Zara had turned. And the human was still alive because of her. The officials grew desperate. They couldn't punish Zara without backlash. She was too famous. Too loved. So they changed the game. They announced a final battle, one that would end all speculation and restore honor. Zara and Jace would face 3 elite champions in the largest event the Empire had seen in a decade. The crowd went wild. But both Zara and Jace knew what it really was, a public execution. They were being set up. Still, they had no choice. On the day of the match, the arena was filled beyond capacity. Flags flew. Drums thundered. The announcer's voice echoed across the city. In today's legendary match, the rebel pair will face their fate. Zara adjusted her gold-lined armor, then looked at Jace. He wore a new outfit, sleek, protective, but still light. He held a blade now, not just to look the part. He knew how to use it. She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Are you ready?" He looked into her eyes. "Only because you're beside me." They stepped into the arena together. Across from them, 3 monsters stood taller, heavier, armed with weapons crafted to kill quickly and painfully. The gates closed. The drums stopped. The match began. Zara struck first, fast and brutal, clashing with a heavy brute wielding twin axes. Jace circled the side, drawing one of the enemies away. His heart pounded, his movements sharp. He blocked a blade, rolled, and struck low. For the first time, the human fought like a warrior. Zara knocked down her enemy with a final spinning kick. The crowd screamed. Another one rushed her from behind, but Jace tackled him mid-charge. They fought back to back, protecting one another with perfect rhythm. When the last opponent hit the ground, silence fell. They were still standing. The crowd rose to their feet, but the officials didn't cheer. They had failed again. Zara looked up at the viewing platform. She pointed her blade toward it. "I am not your property," she shouted. "And neither is he." Her voice rang out across the arena. "This ends now." And the people listened. Because for the first time in Varan history, the crowd didn't cheer for blood, they cheered for freedom. That night, the city didn't sleep. The crowd's cheers echoed through the streets, not for a bloody fight, but for two fighters who had stood against the system. Zara and Jace were no longer just champions. They had become symbols. Hope for the hopeless. A voice for the silent. But inside the arena's upper tower, the officials were panicking. "They've become dangerous," one of them hissed. "She controls the crowd, and the human. He's turned her heart." "Then remove the heart," the main official growled. They ordered an execution. No trial. No warning. Just a clean death before sunrise. But they underestimated Zara. She felt it coming. The shift in the guards. The strange silence in the halls. The way her usual allies avoided eye contact. Even the food delivered to her room was different, lighter, as if they didn't expect her to eat again. So she acted. When the guards came into her room at midnight, she was already gone. She had slipped into the tunnels, shadows guiding her steps. She reached Jace's room, where he was still asleep, unaware of the blades moving toward his back. Zara burst in without knocking. Her blade cut through the attackers in one smooth motion. Jace jumped up, confused. "Zara, what's going on?" "They're trying to kill us." He didn't ask more. He trusted her. Together, they moved through the underground halls. She knew every tunnel, every dead end. She had studied them all her life without realizing why until now. She wasn't born to fight for the Empire. She was born to break it. They reached the lowest gate, sealed with a heavy lock. Jace knelt down and Kote pulled out a cracked tool from his belt. "Give me 20 seconds. Zara stood behind him, guarding the hallway. Footsteps echoed. Shouting. They were closing in. The lock clicked open just as a laser bolt flew past her head. She pulled. Jace threw and slammed the gate shut. They were free of the arena, but not the Empire. Outside, the city was glowing with lights, tall towers, and strange flying ships zooming overhead. But the streets were quiet. Soldiers had already blocked most exits. Zara and Jace ran through alleyways, past market stalls, past frightened faces who recognized them, but didn't speak. They finally found a storage yard at the edge of the industrial zone. Inside was a small smuggler ship. Old, dirty, perfect. Jace jumped into the pilot seat and began hot-wiring the controls. "This thing's from before I was born." "Can you fly it?" Zara asked. "Barely, but I can make it jump." Zara stood at the ramp, watching the soldiers close in. They were almost there. A voice came over the speakers. "This is High Command. Surrender now, or the next shot ends." "You both." Zara didn't answer. She just stepped into the ship and slammed the ramp shut. Jace grinned. "Strap in." The engines roared. The ship rose, shaky but powerful. Laser blasts lit up the sky as they flew upward. Jace spun hard to avoid them. The ship groaned but held. They shot into the clouds and vanished from the city's radar. They had escaped, for now. Hours later, the stars stretched out before them. Zara stood near the window, watching the galaxy pass by. Her hands were still shaking. Jace came beside her. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "I never thought I'd leave that place." "You didn't just leave," he said. "You broke it." She looked at him. "With you," he smiled. "We made a good team." Silence fell again, but this time it was soft and warm. She leaned against him. "Jace," he turned. She kissed. Him. It wasn't wild or fast. It was quiet, honest, full of everything they had been holding in. When it ended, she looked into his eyes. I've fought my whole life. For others, for survival. But you made me want to live. He held her hand. Then let's live together. And for once, there were no chains. No guards. No crowds. Just two warriors. Bruised but free. And love burning quietly between them in the stars. Asterisk drifted quietly through the outer rim, far from the reach of the Varan Empire. Jace and Zara had been traveling for days, jumping from one system to another, staying low, staying quiet. They didn't know where home was yet, but they knew what they were running from. And they knew they were running together. In those silent nights between the stars, they finally rested. No alarms, no arena walls. Just two people learning how to breathe again. Zara had never smiled much. Now Jace could sometimes catch her doing it, when she thought he wasn't looking. She had once been the fiercest gladiator in the galaxy cold. Invincible, untouchable. Now she laughed when he cooked something weird. She helped repair the old ship, joked about his terrible piloting, and sometimes fell asleep with her head on his shoulder. But peace never lasts forever. One night, a coded signal reached their ship. A distress call. Human origin. From a nearby mining colony. Jace looked at the screen. It's not a trap, it's real. Zara didn't hesitate. Then we go. When they arrived, the place was under attack. Not by the Empire, but by mercenaries paid by the same officials who wanted Zara dead. The colony was defenseless. Children cried in the tunnels. Families were trapped. Zara stood at the ramp, her eyes sharp again. The warrior inside her had returned, but she was no longer fighting for glory or for her masters. She was fighting for people who couldn't protect themselves. Jace handed her a blade. One last fight? She took it. Only if we do it together. They ran into the dust and smoke. Zara moved like fire swift, precise, unstoppable. Jace fought beside her, not as a tag-along, but as a warrior in his own right. He had learned. He had changed. She had made him stronger. They took down the mercenaries one by one, protecting the miners, helping the wounded. It was fast. Brutal, but they won. When it was over, the people of the colony gathered around them. They didn't cheer. They didn't shout. They bowed. A little girl stepped forward, her face dirty and eyes wide. You're the gladiator. Zara knelt in front of her. Not anymore. Then what are you? Zara smiled, free. The girl smiled back. That night, the miners offered them a place to stay. They had nothing valuable, but they shared everything they could. And for the first time in their lives, Zara and Jace felt like they belonged. They helped build new homes, set up defenses, and trained the villagers to protect themselves. They stopped running. They started living. Word spread across the nearby systems. The gladiator who once fought for the Empire was now a protector of the forgotten. Other gladiators began to desert. Other humans joined them. A movement began not with weapons or flags, but with the idea that even those made for war could choose love, peace, and purpose. One evening, Jay stood by the fire. Looking at the stars, Zara walked up beside him and slipped her hand into his. He looked at her and smiled. Still think I'm weak? She leaned into him. You were never weak. You just needed someone to see you. He turned to her. And you? She looked into his eyes. I needed someone to remind me I was more than what they made me. They kissed again. Slow and gentle. Not the kiss of warriors, but of lovers who had survived the impossible and built something real. Under the endless stars, in a world they had saved. Their story came to rest. No more arenas. No more chains. Just freedom. And a love stronger than any empire.